Figures revealed by Scottish Labour show Nicola Sturgeon's government spent more than £14 million of taxpayers' money on credit card transactions in a 3-year period. The full breakdown of spending covers all purchases between September 2019 and August 2022, and it included almost £10,000 worth of VIP travel, a one-off payment of almost £5,000 to a five-star hotel, and yoga classes right down to nail polish. A Scottish Government spokesperson says credit cards aren't meant to be used for personal expenditure. And finally, the Grammy Award-winning artist Sinead O'Connor was laid to rest today in Ireland. Police lined the seafront in County Wicklow to say their final goodbyes to the 56-year-old. She'd been found unresponsive when police were called to her home in south-east London last month. The funeral procession travelled along Bray seafront and past her former home in Montebello Terrace, where she lived for 15 years. You're with GB News across the UK on TV, in your car, on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. This is Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, the paper review show with 3 comedians going through the next day's newspapers. I'm one of them, I'm Leo Kearson. Tonight I'm joined by 2 thought-provoking comedians, London's Josh Howie, and showing the benefits of immigration, the Italian-Iranian Nicholas De Santo. How are you both doing?
Well, I'm feeling very thought-provoking.
Right, good. You've provoked some thoughts already.
No pressure.
OK, well, right, let's have a quick look at Wednesday's front pages. The Daily Mail leads with 2 data breaches that just defy belief. The Guardian has water companies face £800 million legal action over raw sewage allegations. The Express leads with Britain strikes deal in war on people smugglers. The iNews has weight loss jab can cut risk of heart problems. The Financial Times has Universal and Google in talks over licensing AI-generated music. The Daily Star has They Didn't See That Coming, and those were your front pages. And let's have a closer look at those front pages, starting with the Daily Mail. Josh, what have they got?
Yeah, 2 data breaches that just defy belief. I'm literally defying belief. I can't even go any further because my brain is so warped by this information. So yeah, this is the Electoral Commission. It turns out, and not only that, they were hacked like for nearly 2 years. So
it's a huge number.
It's a 40 million people. The information is out there.
I mean, that must be pretty much everyone. Yeah, that's the electoral register.
But that's all the people who just came over today and they on the across the channel. But look, first of all, we don't know who did it. China. But we don't know why. And actually, a lot of this information is in the public space anyway, so we don't really know what they could do with it. I like how they've said that it was a complex cyber attack, because that's the way that they're sort of like going, oh no, guys, you don't understand. It was really complex.
It didn't just have a password set as password.
Exactly, or electoral commish, or whatever. So, yeah, it is slightly worrying, but it doesn't make clear as to what effect this might have on us in any way.
And Nicholas, I mean, one of the worrying things about this, they've released the name, or they've hacked and got the name of every Northern Ireland police officer. Which, I mean, I understand, the troubles aren't ongoing, but, I mean, earlier, it never really goes away. Earlier this year, DCI John Caldwell, a police officer in Northern Ireland, was shot in front of his son. So this must be quite a worry for police officers.
Yeah, this case is arguably a bit more worrisome than the other one. Of course, we don't know as to what extent this can go or what implications it can have unless and until we know who has been behind it. But unfortunately, this sort of data breaches have become commonplace, a plague of our times, as more and more information is stored online, and this is just yet another example of that.
Yeah, and it doesn't always seem to be, so too sophisticated to get into these systems. And do you think there's going to be any compensation for the...
No, we're just going to get loads more spam. That's the gist of it.
Moving on, what have they got on the front cover of the Express, Nicholas?
All right, Britain strikes deal in war on people smugglers. This is good news, actually. essentially, the news is quite actually hot. We just received it ourselves. But UK National Crimes Agency has struck a deal with the Turkish authorities so that they could start tackling or cracking down on these people smugglers, criminal gangs at the source. The idea, basically, to paraphrase the Minister for Immigration, Mr. Robert Jenrick, is that Calais or the coast of France are the goal line. But to use a football analogy, we must, and I guess that's what he's saying because we've just received half the article. So but start as far away as from your goal line as possible. Because if you look at it, Turkey, as well as other places like Serbia, Libya, of course, these are the places where these future illegal immigrants and the whole journey is organized by these people smugglers.
You know, they should go back even further. Let's just take it just to another stadium. Let's take this whole. But I mean, look, if they did manage to like make these countries wonderful places to live, then no one's going to want to come here. Or let's make our country so terrible that no one wants to come here.
Well, I think we're doing both at the moment.
Well, go Tories.
But yeah, I mean, this is interesting. I didn't realise Turkey was such a hub for people traffickers, and also there's such an industry. In this article, they talk about the industry with the boats being supplied from China. I mean, this is how the scale of this industry, because it's not just Britain that the boats are coming to. They're of course going to Italy and other European countries. And so China's making a lot of money supplying these inflatable
You can't
boats.
buy dinghies anywhere else but Turkey.
But a lot of people, are making money. Not least the lawyers, which have been amply
segue.
covered by GBNews today. So we're not going there right now. But Turkey is a huge country next to Syria, Iraq, and Iran. And
Right.
Iran, in turn, is a neighbor of Afghanistan. So that is a big hub, and it's a big stopping point for all these people who get there. And in the past, we had the same problem with Serbia, for example. Now the EU has pushed them to bring in their visa regulations in line with the rest of the EU, even though Serbia is not a member of the EU. We used to have these one-way flights, essentially, going full to Belgrade, full of these future illegal immigrants, and flights going back empty.
Is that how you got in?
They would, yeah. Pardon
Is
me?
that how you got in?
No, I was born in Italy.
Just checking. Just
But yeah,
checking.
and we've seen Belarus and Russia try to destabilize Europe by flying. They were doing the same
Another
thing. They were
example.
flying flights into Minsk from all across troubled regions, Syria, places like that. Basically saying, putting adverts up in war zones, saying like, listen, the European Union, Britain, they'll give you an amazing quality of life. So just get on this plane, and then they were like basically pushing them towards the border and being putting the immigrants, the migrants in a terrible position because then the border guards would push them back and it'd be the middle of winter, and it was to create this sort of this terrible PR for the European Union where it's showing them leaving families starving in the cold. But it shows how immigration has become this politicized thing that geopolitical forces can use to punish each other.
Yeah. There's also a picture, by the way, of Sinead O'Connor's funeral. Lots of people out in the streets. Very sad about her death. I actually knew her a little bit.
Did you?
Yeah.
Really?
Friend of the family, yeah.
Right. You got the same hairstyle.
Well, that's inspired by her. This is all in tribute.
Right. Okay. Well, we move on to the eye, Josh.
Weight loss jab can cut risk of heart problems. So we've obviously heard a lot over the last couple of months about this jab, and they're now saying that it can cut heart attacks by 20% and strokes. So basically, it's just a wonder drug. It also irons your shirt. It's got various other effects.
We need to get it on this show.
Yeah. The only problem is that it's so popular, you just can't actually get it.
Right.
Even though it's been approved by the NHS. But if you do have shares in the company, then keep on to them.
Yeah, they surged another 150%, apparently.
Yeah, just like my waistline until I get this bloody drug.
I mean, what do you think of this drug? Because we have also heard that some of these weight loss drugs carry negative side effects as well. It seems to be the new butter. Every week there's an article saying it's either good or bad.
Well, I hope because when you go to America, you hear some of these negative side effects to some of these drugs, and they're scary. And you think how bad these negative side
Like
effects
heroin and
must be. No, the ones advertised on TV, not heroin. But this one apparently has some beneficial. I don't know if we can call it side effects because it's apparently been already used to tackle heart attack, type 2 diabetes, and so on. But as Josh was saying, it's so popular that you can't get it on the NHS yet. They're hoping maybe by the end of this year.
Yeah. One of the older, it's not a drug, but it's a sort of fat replacement thing they used to put in Doritos and things like that. I think it's called Olestra. And when I lived in Canada, my girlfriend got some of these crisps that were made with Olestra. And the way it works is it binds to the fat in your gut. But then it can, one of the side effects, it's just written in small writing on the side of the crisp packet, causes anal leakage. So they were on a road trip. And yeah, they all basically had a bit.
Should we go back to my Sinead O'Connor story?
Yeah, anyway, we finished this section before we run to the toilet to check our pants with a story from the Daily Star. Nicholas, what have they got?
Yeah, well, the title is "They Didn't See That Coming." That's a nice.
Is that people who bought those crisps?
No, this is a totally different story. Just as Hollywood actors and writers are going on strike, among other things, over uncertainty about the role of AI in future movies. Here we have yet another professional category: clairvoyants, tarot readers, fortune tellers, who might be replaced by AI in the future. Apparently, AI having access to a wider range of data and being immune or unaffected by some human preconceptions can do a better job of, palm reading and predicting your future.
Well, that's how clairvoyants work, is they just go on Facebook. That is the big secret. I know a clairvoyant. And they basically get people's names before the show. They have people spotters out there, get on Facebook, and then they just have all this.
During the show?
During the show and before the show, they look at ticket names and whatnot. And that's how they do it. And they do their research.
Look at their Instagram, they're like, you had spaghetti for lunch.
Yeah, exactly. And this is amazing. So it makes sense that it's not that hard to kind of extrapolate information from it. But I don't think they're going to be able to speak to Uncle Terry.
Why?
Because they're machines. Right. As opposed to real clairvoyant.
Oh, you mean it's not real?
Have you been to a clairvoyant before?
No.
OK, well, that's what they do.
Right. I know what. Who's Uncle Terry?
He's your dead uncle.
No, my uncle's alive.
OK. Glad that joke went well.
OK. OK, well, that's it for part one. Coming up in part two, we've got government leaks, Lee Anderson in hot barge water, and Sturgeon's spending spree with your money. Don't go away.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
is the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Leo Kearse, joined by Josh Howie and Nicholas DeSanto. And let's continue with the stories. Got the Express, and Lee Anderson's tough talking over illegal immigrants has raised the hackles of Diane Abbott. But has she got off on the wrong foot, Nicholas?
Good story, because it is winding up all the right kind of people. The Express title is Diane Abbott loses plot over Lee Anderson's F-off back to France illegal migrant dig. And obviously, the central point is the distinction between illegal migrant and presumed asylum seeker, a distinction that the left and the mainstream media do not want to acknowledge, because Lee Anderson's comment initially was about illegal migrants. And we don't know, before somebody has applied for asylum, we don't know if they are asylum seekers or not. And of course, there's all the good reasons to believe that most of these people are not. They are economic migrants. International law says if you're fleeing for your life, you should ask for asylum in the safe place. And the first safe place, as we were just discussing, is Turkey, is Jordan, is Iran for people of Afghanistan, or Pakistan for people of Afghanistan. And so on.
So they've come through a number of safe countries before they've got to France, and they've been like, well, this still isn't good enough. What Britain?
Italy. I mean, aren't we tired of comedians who say, who take a dig at France? You know, I like France. There are Italians, transalpine cousins, we call them. But you've all heard the jokes, how terrible France must be for these people fleeing for their lives to snob it because they want to come to live in Birmingham or something.
Well, I think the waiters can be rude. I don't know if that counts as a war zone, though. But, I mean, Josh, don't you think Lee Anderson's language, it can alienate some of the people you want to bring with you on the, you know, if you want to convince them of the need to tackle illegal immigration, you don't want to be using this kind of rhetoric.
Well, the thing is, and because, Nicholas, you're not here that often, it's lovely to have you here, but, like, we work here in the office, and this is so typical Lee. Like, we know what it's like working with him, and he's just effing and blinding all over the place. You can't blame him for that. That's just what he does, isn't it?
Is it?
I don't know, I've never met him. I don't know. But I will say this.
What does your Uncle Terry think of it?
The thing is that there is hypocrisy here in that the Express would just be like, he's just be Lee, innit? And then, but at the same time, if it had been a Labour MP using this kind of language, they would be like, calling for blood.
A Labour MP would never use this language because obviously a Labour MP, and the reason Labour, I mean, this is the secret reason they want, open borders that they'll never admit to. They think that everybody who comes over the border is going to vote Labour. So that's why they want to swell the sort of non-British portion of Britain.
Well, but what's going on here is, his statement was taken out of context in that, as you said, it was asylum seekers versus illegal migrants. But also he said the people very clearly it's the people who say no to going on to the boat whilst their claim is being read. So it's not just like a big F whatever to anybody seeking migration.
A genuine asylum seeker who is really fleeing persecution or fleeing for their lives wouldn't be, wouldn't complain about being housed in a barge. I used to be an interpreter for some of these claims. Again, lawyers and legal studios who do this with taxpayers' money, they were suing the British government because during COVID pandemic they were housed in some military barracks, same barracks that British military personnel were housed. And they were like, where would you have wanted to be housed in the middle of the West End? And it wouldn't have made any difference because it was a lockdown. You see, we know they've lost we know they are lying to us because even mainstream media's narrative is not saving their lives anymore. They talk about seeking a better future, which is code for economic migrant. If somebody barges into this studio with a machine gun, I'm going to say, guys, get down, get out, save your lives. I'm not going to say, guys, get out, seek a better future. That's
an interesting perspective from somebody with some experience of the issue. And we've got the Express now, and Nicola Sturgeon confounds the stereotype of Scots being tight-fisted, although, to be fair, she's spending other people's money, Josh.
Yeah, and it's Scottish money, so it doesn't really count.
No, this money's coming from Westminster.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, this is... Where do you think Scotland...
Oh, really? I thought it was all different.
No, under the Barnett formula, Scotland receives, I think, an extra, something like 14 or 15 billion from English taxpayers.
Well,
So
hopefully,
thank you for that,
not
Josh.
anymore. Inside Nicola Sturgeon's VIP spending from luxury UK travel to lavish hotel stays. So this is Scottish Labour. They have sought this information out, and they've had it revealed that this is stuff on their credit card. And some of it is slightly like she spent £1,000 going to Ireland when you could get a ticket for like £12.50 if you don't mind not having legs. But there are things like yoga classes that were purchased. But to be fair, she needs yoga classes. Also, someone needed...
She doesn't look like somebody who's ever done any yoga. She's the most uptight-looking person I've ever seen in my life.
You think so? Well, that's why she needs it terribly.
Some of this stuff, I mean, she spent nearly £10,000 on travel upgrades. Not even the ticket, on the upgrade.
Well, that's from 2019 to now, whereas Rishi Sunak, that's just like a trip down the supermarket.
Rishi Sunak's a proper leader, not a made-up leader of Scotland. Sorry to denigrate the nation of my birth, but I mean, come on.
Well, there was, weirdly, there was some money spent on 2 pregnancy kits, but I think we know that wasn't for her. Nudge, nudge.
Was there really money spent on pregnancy kits?
Yeah, 2 pregnancy kits.
Jeez.
So this wasn't just money for her. This was through the government and their credit card expenses.
Is she handing stuff out in the street? This is ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, Nicholas, what do you make of this? Because I mean, I'd have thought the whole thing of being, Nicola Sturgeon, she gives the impression of being parsimonious and caring about the people, but like all dictators. She doesn't seem to mind buying herself a fancy pair of shoes once in a while.
So much for the Tories being out of touch with the common man. Apart from VIP treatments at the airports, which Josh mentioned, the most ironic case is her own government buying her own speeches, which are freely available on the internet. And the library division of the government of Scotland bought 6 volumes of a compendium of her speeches for this library.
So she published a book? And she got the Scottish government, maybe not prompted by her, bought her book.
Yeah, but I think it was only a couple of copies, so it's not like it sent it into the top 10.
Probably doubled the sales figures.
Yeah, maybe.
That's ridiculous. Oh my God, what a scam. I wish I'd gone into politics. Anyway, The Guardian now, and Italian banks have been slow to pass interest rate profits on to savers, so the government is doing it for them, Nicholas.
Yeah, the title is Italy approves 40% windfall tax on banks for 2023 as profits soar. By the way, I just love what the Italian government is doing. Every day I wake up and the Italian government is doing something that I really like. And the Italian right-wing government, headed by Giorgia Meloni, the female prime minister...
Very progressive.
Not liked by the feminists and the mainstream media at all. Essentially, they have decided that banks are making a lot of profit because of the hike in interest rates. We know that in Britain, same story, on people who have loans or mortgages. But they are not as fast as turning the same profit to people who, for example, have savings accounts.
So as the interest rates go up, they pass it on to people who are paying them, but they don't pass it on to people that they're
or
paying
not with the same speed, like with energy prices. When petrol, gas prices go up, we feel it immediately. But when it goes down,
it's a feather effect. It's called the interest margin, net interest margin. I read that.
Which is, by the way, one of the headlines of the Independent is accusing British banks of doing the same.
Right.
But British government says, well, we are already taxing them enough. Through other avenues, we're not going to do much.
But it is interesting because, like you say, there is this thing that we see in the news of this being a right-wing government, but this sounds like a pretty socialist thing to tax your banks for $4 billion.
In Italy, we call it destra sociale, social right.
Okay.
It sounds so much better. Honestly, socialism sounds so much better in an Italian accent.
Sounds better. Anything sounds better.
What sort of is that Mussolini-type politics?
Well, Mussolini actually founded Italy's the equivalent of NHS. So.
Right. What's it called?
Well, we call it INPS.
Oh, that doesn't sound so good. That sounds like something you do.
INPS.
Istituto Nazionale della Previdenza Sociale.
Oh, yeah, when you say it like that, it sounds much better. Anyway, moving on, we've got the Telegraph now, and let's hope Labour are good at running state education, because they're going to make sure nobody can afford the alternative, Josh.
This is slightly ridiculous, this article, because its private school fees could cost $826,000 per child under Labour. But what they sort of get to through the article is that it would cost $700,000 anyway. So that it's going up 5% a year, regardless of Labour's impact. So
Wait,
whether
but 700,000 to like 826,000, that's a big jump.
Look, if you've got £700,000, you've got £800,000, or you don't. I'm not going to feel sorry for you if you've got, I've only got £710,000
That's
spare.
how lefties deal with numbers and figures.
But you know what I mean? It's like, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to like feel sorry for people because they've just under the £800,000.
It's not about feeling sorry for people, Josh.
Whatever.
This is about, I mean, this is seriously about Labour. They want to sort of punish the rich, but also raise some money for the state. But they're going about it the wrong way, because if they raise the cost of private education, people will have to take their kids out of private school and put them in state education, which then costs the state
but there's
a lot
been
of money.
conflicting surveys about whether that's going to cost money or whether it's going to save money. So their argument is it's going to still make a lot more money than otherwise they'd be spending.
Yeah, but other arguments say it's going to cost the state billions.
Call me overly skeptical, but essentially they want to declare war on private education for ideological, because the vehicle for indoctrinating the children is the state school, okay? And it's not just about the annual 5% or 6% increase. They want to basically take away, strip private schools of their charity status, which means parents will be charged VAT on their school bills. That will be on top of that 5%.
But if they're a private business there to make profit, why are they then getting that money?
Because they're providing a service to the community. And honestly,
is it to the community or is it to rich people?
Somebody who sends rich people are people as well, Josh. You wouldn't know that as a left-wing person, but like if somebody sends their kids,
I used to be rich.
If somebody sends their kids to private school, then they're still paying through taxes, probably for way more than they should, because rich people pay way more tax.
Actually, it's interesting thing is that a lot of this money is actually coming from grandparents. Two-thirds of grandparents are providing the money that's sending these kids. Not my parents. They're just totally happy. Let my kids be thick. Thanks, Mum and Dad.
And I think my parents are going to give me a bill. That's what I'll inherit. Anyway, that's it for part 2, but you won't want to miss part 3. We've got Amanda Abington's Drag Queens for Kids drama, a good excuse to avoid the theatre, and finally, whites are a minority. Does that mean I can get in some adverts? See you in a couple of minutes.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. I'm Craig Snell. Well, looking ahead to tomorrow, for most of us it should be largely dry. Best of the sunshine will be out towards the east, and for most of us it should be feeling warmer than it has done. So here's the situation at the moment. We've got high pressure beginning to build in. Today's rain and cloud, all responsible from this area. Low pressure will gradually move away as we go into the nighttime period. So for a lot of us, we should start Wednesday off on a fairly clear note. Still quite windy across the very far north of Shetland. And out towards the west, we're starting to just see the next spell of cloud and rain move in. But for most, it should be a fairly mild start to Wednesday, with most of us staying in double figures. So plenty of sunshine initially across the UK, but this cloud and outbreaks of rain will spread its way a little bit further eastwards as we go through the course of the day. So I think come the afternoon, rather grey skies for Northern Ireland, parts of Western Scotland, down into Wales, southwest England, and eventually into the Midlands too. So the best of sunshine really will be out towards the east, eastern Scotland, southeast England, probably seeing the lion's share, and in the southeast feeling much warmer, highs reaching 24 degrees. Then into Thursday, after a bit of a slow grey start, this cloud will quickly burn away. And actually, Thursday is probably going to be the best day of the week for most of us. Plenty of sunshine come the afternoon, and in the sunshine, feeling much warmer. Highs reaching 27, possibly 28 degrees in the south. But it's one day wonder as we go into Friday, turning cooler and more showery, and that goes into the weekend too.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate. Both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, kicking things off with The Guardian. And replacement theory is the far-right conspiracy theory that immigration is leading to white people becoming a minority. In unrelated news, immigration is leading to white people becoming a minority in the US, Nicholas.
Yeah, mind you, as soon as you mention replacement theory, because last time it came up in some of the stories when I was here, and I clipped it and I put it on my YouTube, and Wikipedia decided to impartially put one of those fact-checking squares underneath it, saying this is a conspiracy theory, as if it's not happening. But it is happening. Gen Z will be last generation with white majority in US, study finds. Basically, this
apart
is
from the Native Americans back in the day, when they were the majority.
Well, they didn't have a country, to be fair, because most of it was empty.
Oh, you're so pedantic, mate.
Well, it's a definition of country according to Karl Weber, the German philosopher. You need institutions, exclusive use of force.
Could you come to all my gigs, please, to
Pardon
explain?
me?
Could you come to all my gigs and explain my jokes?
Yeah, what sort of audience do you have? How hostile are they? So, basically, Gen Z, who are people born between and 12, will be the last generation in the US, according to this projection or prediction, to live in a white majority America.
Yeah.
And then there's also another sort of dynamic. Not only whites, according to this prediction, will become a minority in their own country, but...
Is it their own country?
Yes, we already established that.
No, I mean, what I'm saying is it a white-owned country?
No, but John, he didn't say that. He didn't say that. He said it's in their own country. I think if you're American and you're born in America, then yeah, it's your country.
But Hispanics who are born there...
It's their country as well.
Yeah, exactly, but it just sounded a bit like you were saying...
No,
like
he didn't. He just said, you know,
that's what it sounded
they'll become a minority in their own country.
Yeah, which is
accurate and true.
Yeah, factually correct. But it's not just about that. There's also a generational or age factor to consider as well, because different ethnicities age differently or in different proportions. So we will have more elderly white people, and we already do, and younger people will be will have less white people in them. And this causes what is called a racial generation gap or a cultural generation gap. Whereas you will have this bigger divide. So if you thought now it is difficult with a lot of mostly peaceful protests and social incohesion between the two groups, there's more to come, potentially.
Except they'll die.
Pardon?
Except they'll die.
Well, everybody will die. But
what I'm saying is the gap will only be there for so long.
Well, no, I mean, surely the gap's going to get... I mean, what we're going to see is an America that's increasingly non-white.
Yeah, but my point is that you're saying that there's going to be this tension between these two gaps. Well, one of them's going to then be dying in the next 30 years or so. So then their tension will disappear.
A cheery note.
Just another joke about people dying. It's no big deal.
Josh,
Don't worry about
dark tonight with his jokes, starting with Uncle Terry.
Well, actually, but what's interesting is like what impact this is going to have culturally on it. And you're saying, but also when it doesn't really mention this, it kind of skips around it. But there's this assumption that just because it's going to be a sort of a predominantly non-white country, that means the cultural change is going to be so huge. But actually, Hispanics predominantly come from a Catholic background and are anti-abortion and whatnot. So this idea that just suddenly it's all going to be the old white people are all the conservatives and all the young people. It's just that's not the case.
Absolutely, and that's the assumption that's been turned on its head, and with people like Ted Cruz and Ron DeSantis. And also we're seeing a lot of white people, or people who would have traditionally identified as white, now identifying as non-white because it's not cool anymore. So that's driving part of the trend. Anyway, we've got The Guardian now, and in a perfect representation of our time, Amanda Abington, the actress, has had to apologise for saying she doesn't want children to do sexualised performances for adults, Josh.
Yeah, Strictly contestant Amanda Abington denies being transphobic. She's an actress from Sherlock and various other things. And when it was announced, she was the first person to announce to go on Strictly. And a couple of thousand people went, oh my God, she's a transphobe because she, shock horror, thinks or has said that women don't have a penis and things like that. So she's done the worst possible thing, which is to somewhat apologise or sort of a half apology. She's like, let me explain. I love drag acts, but it's just there was a 12-year-old and she's talking about this footage that you might have seen online, doing this 12-year-old twerking and insanely overly sexualized. And she was like, this is wrong. Any normal person is going to be like, yeah, this is morally wrong. Also, any normal person is going to go, yeah, women don't have it. The only women who have a penis are trans men. You know, whether it's a natural,
I don't know, Josh, I could show you some videos.
Well, let's save that for the break.
What do you make of this? I mean, this is another celebrity that's sort of been skewered for having pretty normal opinions and saying something that wouldn't have been at all controversial just a few years ago.
I mean, in her defense, His Majesty's head of opposition is not quite sure what a woman
Well, he said it now, though.
Well, yeah, it took him quite a while, didn't it?
Yeah, so, he had to have a lot of focus groups before he decided.
Yeah. He got there in the end, that's the important thing.
Why can't this actor, Amanda Abington, have a clear-cut idea of what a man is or what a woman is? But for the first time tonight, I fully agree with Josh. Never apologize because you only encourage them and give them more fuel for their vibe and to go after more and more people.
Which that rapper, I don't know if you saw the rapper Neo, you know, he came out and said some stuff about don't medicalise children. Yeah. And then his publicist put out a thing on Instagram that said, I'm really sorry, I'm a big ally, I need to learn more. And then he came out and just went, no, mate.
I didn't mean that.
He was like, no. And it was a great video because I don't know if you saw it today, but he was just like, look, we all have thoughts. Yeah. You're not going to take away my opinions. You know, that's what I think. And you're not going to shut that down. And if that means that I have to go back to hustling or whatever, then that's what I'm going to do. It's a fantastic video. That's the way it is. And, of course, the idea that she's even had to come out and apologise, we're talking about a couple of thousand people. And these couple of thousand very loud voices have been running the show for a couple of years. Just people out of fear. Stop being afraid and just speak up to this stuff.
And on a similar theme, we've got The Telegraph now, and feminazi was a derogatory term used by male chauvinists in the 80s. It seems like the SNP want to bring it back, Nicholas.
Gender critics akin to white supremacists, claims SNP's Murray Black. So I remember when she was elected to Westminster as the youngest ever MP, if I'm not wrong, in 2015. Now, in Edinburgh Fringe Festival, she has had this show in which she has basically compared people who don't agree with her on transgender issues to white supremacists and called them, by implication, indecent people. Now, she says, you know, there used to be these so-called intellectuals who said race is everything, and look, in neighborhoods where we have more black or brown people, we have more crime, and nowadays we look back and say you are racist or you were racist. And now the same applies to people who don't want to, you know, accommodate trans people or trans people rights, and therefore they are the same or akin to white supremacists. Now, I tell you, if all it takes to make you the same as a white supremacist is saying that a biological male with bigger lungs, bigger muscles, bigger bones, a totally different level of testosterone should not be playing football or wrestling with a woman, if that makes you a white supremacist, she's actually making white supremacists looking very reasonable.
I mean, yeah, isn't that the danger of this, Josh, that instead of making feminists look bad, it's going to make white supremacists look good?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And of course, then someone says, you know, what happens if you do have these thoughts? You do think that someone's different because they're biological. She's like, oh, you should keep it to yourself, which is, of course, the whole hashtag no debate, that's what's got us to this point, is because feminists have not been able to make these very reasonable cases for protecting single-sex spaces, plus a plethora of other issues.
Yeah.
So, and then also she does this horrible old thing of going, oh, if you look at these groups like women's groups, feminist groups, left-wing feminist groups, you go, the money, it's all coming from right-wing and from anti-abortion and this and that. It's been totally debunked. And actually, if you look at Dawn Butler, Labour MP, and you look at who's funded her, turns out, I believe there's a bunch of trans rights activists, and so looking into her funding, and she's the one who said, oh, yeah, babies are born without sex. It's absolutely ridiculous. And of course, like anything, it flips around and they always accuse the thing, they are the thing that they accuse you of.
Well, it's just nice to see feminists fighting amongst themselves. Anyway, that's all for part 3. Coming up, beyond burger sales plummet, fat people's brains, and a French mayor bans sitting. Find out what that's all about in 2 minutes. See you then.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious?
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
all sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, kicking off this section with The Guardian, and sales of vegan food soared as people tried it, but are now plunging as people realised it's disgusting, Josh.
Yeah, sales at vegan burger maker Beyond Meat fall by almost a third. We've seen this through various different companies now, the values. It was the new big thing and it tasted just like meat and everyone was super happy because it would save the planet.
Did you
and
try
make us
one?
all... Yeah, it was not very nice.
Yeah, it was all squishy, it was mushy.
Yeah, it wasn't that good. But worse than that, and that's really the crux of this article, is that they were charging as much, if not more, for the privilege of eating it. And that's, I think, why people have balked, because it's like, well, a minute, I want to be healthy and I want to help the planet, but you're kind of taking a mickey here. So that's what it... And the actual drop of value is like, it was 770 million now, and it's dropped, but in a couple of years ago, it was at like 10 billion. So these companies, so it's a massive impact. I don't think it's going to go anywhere long term. I think that people will eat these things, but they just got to lower the prices on them.
And you can normally only lose that much market value by employing Dylan Mulvaney to advertise your stuff. I mean, have you eaten this stuff? And also, there seems to be a concern about the sort of level of processedness, if that's a word.
That's true. I have a vegetarian wife with some vegan sympathy, so sometimes I look at the price tags of these things and I shudder. You know, I think they are charging or overcharging people based on an emotive value or emotional value, because certain classes, I don't want to come off as elitist or anti-elitist, but certain classes of people who strongly believe in this kind of, lifestyle are have more disposable income. And another fascinating stuff is they want to make it as close as possible to the meat experience. Burgers that appear to bleed, for example, is a description. I mean, maybe that's what makes them so costly.
Maybe a burger that hits a pig in the face with a shovel. Maybe like if it causes some pain to an animal somewhere, it'll be more realistic.
What's the point in going vegan in the first place?
Exactly. Nobody's trying to get steak and make it taste like broccoli. That should tell people something. Anyway, we've got the Times now with proof that the Democrats hate women. Nicholas.
Well, women in Biden's White House are paid 20% less than the men. So we can conclude that Biden administration and the White House is sexist according to their own criteria and according to their own, measures with which they go after certain corporations, accusing them of having a gender pay gap. Of course, in reality, it's not true, because obviously women, even in the White House, as the study finds, it's by American Enterprise Institute, women have different jobs, men have different jobs, women work different hours. You know, just look at us. To make a living, it's almost midnight. We are here making a living. I'm sitting next to a communist just to,
But yeah, I mean, there's not so much a gender pay gap as a baby pay gap, because women obviously bear the brunt of actually producing babies and squeezing them out of their bodies, which they have to take time off work for, and then also raising the baby as well.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting about this article is it exists at all. Like, they specifically published it to basically prove the point that this whole idea of pay discrepancy, when it's people of the same sex doing the same job, they're getting the same. This is public information. So it's because now people make different lifestyle choices. Also, they're talking about, there's another thing they talk about, how women with post degrees, they suffer more or they get less money. But it's the type of degrees that some women choose to take.
Yeah.
That's the difference, and they have a different social care, which it seems like women are drawn more to, whatever, pays different from a law degree, for example. Yeah. So that is not to do with some evil company going, we're just going to give you less money because you're a woman.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, yeah,
it's
three men there debunked the gender pay gap. We've got the Times now, and it's not just bodies that are a different shape in fat people, Nicholas.
Obese people have differently shaped brains, scientists discover. I hope this is not another excuse for obesity, but essentially this is published in a journal called Neuroimage Clinical. Essentially, this is about the...
Do you subscribe? It's one of my favourite magazines.
It's not an issue that affects me. My BMI index is perfect.
Mazel tov.
If anything, I need to gain weight.
Wow, just boasting away there.
I mean, You tell me.
So that means your brain will be the right shape as well.
Pardon?
Your brain will be the right shape as well, according to this article.
Good BMI, this guy.
Looks like it. My brain, or to be more specific, the hypothalamus. So this is a mysterious region, very small, almond-shaped or almond-sized in the depths.
Has it got oil? We can invade it.
I don't know, but it doesn't show very easily on MRI scans. So this has been quite an enigma. And apparently one of its responsibilities is to control the appetite, to tell you when you are full. And people who gain weight apparently have some inflammation in this hypothalamus, which leads to some malfunction. So they can't exactly decide, or they basically the brain doesn't receive the signal that I'm full.
So it's not entirely self-control. It may be some sort of inflammation in the brain. That's interesting. The Telegraph now, and it looks like Brussels is trying to disguise its demographic shift.
It's a really interesting story, this. Brussels offers discounts to change foreign-sounding names or ridiculous, hateful and old-fashioned names. So this is some areas in Brussels, some regions, basically are taking it upon themselves where normally it costs about 500 quid to change your name. But if you want to, they're saying they're giving these discounts like to 50 quid. And as some people of Arabic or Muslim origin are saying, like, is it because you want us to change the name Mohammed or whatever? So it's a very interesting idea. Like, you wonder why they've taken this initiative. Like, are they ashamed of people having foreign... What's wrong with having people with foreign-sounding names? Like, I didn't know that was a problem.
Well, I mean, it's not a problem, but it does sort of expose the demographic shift in Europe. I mean, we see in cities in France and other places in Europe that Mohammed is not just the #1 name. A different spelling is #2. I mean, that's the sort of...
But it's a weird thing that they would take it upon themselves to be like, well, you should not be called Mohammed, or we'll make it easy for you not to be called Mohammed anymore, if that's what they're implying.
It's just a healthy suggestion. In America, in the UK, it's relatively cheap to change your name. But in America, upon obtaining citizenship, you can change it, if I'm not mistaken, free of charge.
So maybe there is a noble intention.
Well, I'm going to change it to Mohammed.
Anyway, the show is nearly over. So let's take another quick look at Wednesday's front pages. The Daily Mail leads with 2 data breaches that just defy belief. The Guardian has water companies face £800 million legal action over raw sewage allegations. The Express has Britain strikes deal in war on people smugglers. iNews leads with weight loss jab can cut risk of heart problems. The Financial Times has Universal and Google in talks over licensing AI-made music. And the Daily Star has they didn't see that coming, and those were your front pages. And that's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests, Josh Howie and Nicholas DeSanto. Andrew Doyle will be here tomorrow at 11 p.m, joined by Josh and Nick. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, stay tuned for breakfast. Goodbye.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. I'm Craig Snell. Well, looking ahead to tomorrow, for most of us it should be largely dry. Best of the sunshine will be out towards the east, and for most of us it should be feeling warmer than it has done. So here's the situation at the moment. We've got high pressure beginning to build in. Today's rain and cloud, all responsible from this area. Low pressure will gradually move away as we go into the nighttime period. So for a lot of us, we should start Wednesday off on a fairly clear note. Still quite windy across the very far north of Shetland. And out towards the west, we're starting to just see the next spell of cloud and rain move in. But for most, it should be a fairly mild start to Wednesday, with most of us staying in double figures. So plenty of sunshine initially across the UK, but this cloud and outbreaks of rain will spread its way a little bit further eastwards as we go through the course of the day. So I think come the afternoon, rather grey skies for Northern Ireland, parts of Western Scotland, down into Wales, southwest England, and eventually into the Midlands too. So the best of sunshine really will be out towards the east, eastern Scotland, southeast England, probably seeing the lion's share, and in the southeast feeling much warmer, highs reaching 24 degrees. Then into Thursday, after a bit of a slow grey start, this cloud will quickly burn away. And actually, Thursday is probably going to be the best day of the week for most of us. Plenty of sunshine come the afternoon, and in the sunshine, feeling much warmer. Highs reaching 27, possibly 28 degrees in the south. But it's one day wonder as we go into Friday, turning cooler and more showery, and that goes into the weekend too.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
The Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, is talking tough on crooked lawyers allowing illegal people to come into the country. But will a life sentence stop this from happening, or is it all just nonsense? We're also joined by a former boss of Border Force in Calais who has recently lost his bank account. Just how political is all this getting? And an Essex entrepreneur joins us to tell us why he's finding it increasingly difficult to take cash and being forced to use credit cards and therefore